Hi, welcome to Real World Riding Towers. I'm just going to start this slightly the wrong way around because this is afterwards, but just by way of introduction. This was a short form I put together just while I borrowed a full-size e-bike for 5 days, and I thought I'd put this video together so that if anybody else is thinking about it, but there's lots and lots of unknowns, then maybe this would answer some of them for you. So I hope you find it useful. It's a little bit different to what I normally do. The bike I have got, or what bike I borrowed, is pretty capable, and I certainly didn't challenge it particularly. But it's about general use of an e-bike. So I hope you find this useful. Oh, and by the way, while we're here, say hello to Archie. He's a bit shy. Take care. So far from being the 10 minutes into it first impressions, then yeah, I've been riding for about 2 hours now. It's been absolutely minging, blowing an absolute hoolie, and the views haven't been great either. So I've finally got into my first proper bit of forestry, because I've been on open land, open moorland till now, and so there's a chance to have a word where you can actually hear me. So what have we done? 2 hours, and rough stats probably about 15k, nearly all of it uphill. So I've had it in eco mode nearly all the time. Some of the level bits I've been able to turn it off completely, which is really good. So eco into the wind, really rough track as well. So we're talking sort of inch and a half lumps of aggregate, and I'm showing it's dropped. The range on the bike has dropped from something like about 120k, down to slightly more realistic 35, which is moderately worrying because I've got about 25 left to go. However, I've done most of the climbing, so I've been just shy, or just over, around about 700 metres, and I started off at just over 300, so 400 metres of climbing and a fair distance as well. So modes, well, obviously got off, which is, we like using off. Off is really good for downhill. So I've had that on off a few times, and I've used eco a little bit just to keep things going. And then once I was on the off-road tracks, like the stuff you can see behind me, then yeah, I've had it on eco nearly all the time actually. It's got MTB, that really sucks the juice out of it. And then above that, there's boost and turbo as well, so that might, well, I don't really want to use those anyway right out here, so I'm probably about halfway around the route, and I want to have some juice left, so I'll only use those if I need to. We're on fairly non-technical stuff, so I shouldn't need to use those, and the majority of the climbing's been done now, so it's going okay so far. Have I learned anything? Well, yeah, you can turn the motor off. That's quite handy, that is. So obviously I've ridden the bike as efficiently as possible, so I try to find the smoothest bits of the trail. I've been heavily using the gears, so not just whacking it into boost every time I need it. So if you treat it like you're riding your own bike and then only use the motor when you need a little bit of extra kick, then actually works really well. And obviously timing wise, then I'm doing really well because I'm not having to stop, and my legs, I've been feeling it, but there's no way that I've been breathing out of other orifices while I've been going. No, it's been alright so far, and fortunately, fingers crossed, touch wood, I haven't had to climb over anything yet, so all the gates have been openable, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be like that for the rest of it, so let's carry on, shall we? Whew. Yeah, so I'm back already. So it's about lunchtime. I've done 40k off the road, which is pretty good. Not the gnarliest of stuff, although one of the tracks in Old Roman Road, the Romans built a really good road, but it has been trashed over several hundred years. Good ride, good ride. So yeah, so I've still got over half a battery life left, um, and and an afternoon. So I think I might go out and try something else as well. So how did it go? Well, I heeded a bit of advice I read about warming the battery up because it's getting cold at the moment. You can tell. There you go. This is just in the kitchen. I'm having a cup of coffee now before I go out. So I warmed the battery up, and apparently it's more efficient when it's warm. And so if you start out with a cold battery, it has to warm up before it gets efficient, so it lasts longer if you warm it up first. So some of the advice I was given was like stick it in the front of the car with the heater blowing onto your feet at full blast for a while to get it nice and warm. I didn't need to do that because I was staying here, so I put it near a radiator to keep it warm. It was pretty cold in the room as well anyway. Yeah, so it was not cold. It was not cold. So obviously that involved taking it off the bike first because I'm not taking the bike into my room, and warming it up, and that seemed to work really, really well. In terms of the efficiency, then I've mostly used Eco all the time. I checked, it has Tour, and then Boost and then Turbo. No, Tour, MTB, Boost and then Turbo. Way too many. Anyway, so I did use MTB on a little bit, and I just used Tour to get up the driveway. But I've got plenty of battery left, so it was great. So that's 40. That's a good old ride, that, and especially with the wind up top, where I didn't video, it was bonkers. I was actually leaning into it because it was so strong, and I had to ride on one side of the track so I didn't get blown off the track. So it was a bit crazy up there. Not too many other people out there, to be fair. In fact, nobody. So yes, it was pretty rough, and I probably wouldn't. Well, it'd definitely be a full day thing, and I'd be in a box, I think, by the time I'd finished what I've just done. So for what I wanted it for, which was to cover mileage, to get out and explore, not too worried too much about going down a hill. So just in case I had to come back up it again, kind of stuff that you tend to try to avoid. That worked really well. And as I said earlier on, hopefully you can hear me on then I rode it like I would ride my ordinary bike. So I tried to find I used my gears first, and only used the boost when I needed to. Not the boost, sorry. Only used Eco when I needed it, and switched it off on the downhills because I didn't need it on those. They weren't technical. Yeah, the easiest gravelly stuff. Didn't use the brakes too much. Yeah, I just rode it efficiently. I could have said that, I just rode it efficiently. That would have saved all of that previous stuff. But anyway, yeah, so I rode it efficiently, and still got some battery left, which is amazing because it is a bit of a lump. One gate, I had to carry it over one gate, but one wasn't too much. In fact, holding this phone up now to talk into it for this long is the thing that's making my arm ache the most. So that's pretty good actually. So time for a cup of coffee, grab a different map, and go see if I can test it a little bit more. I might slip another battery in just to make sure I can run it on turbo for 20 minutes. Okay, we'll see how it goes. So I had that cup of coffee and headed out into the hills for a second go. In a slightly different terrain this time. So it was on a bridleway, off piste, on a bridleway over open moorland, and starting in the valley and riding up. So actually the intention was to ride a route that ordinarily you'd ride down if you could. And it was brilliant. I had to be careful. Obviously I got a new battery, so I used, I'll be honest, I used turbo and, gotta get this right, turbo and MTB a fair bit to get up because it was a steep start. But I was really careful not to over crank it and spin out of the back. But yeah, it climbed up out of the valley over some fairly technical nedgery rocks, up nicely up onto the open moorland. So really, really good at that. Really impressed with that. So from there, so that was the first sort of 2k, and then from there on it was about a 15k ride. There on it was onto moorland tracks, and just with the 29er wheels, and backed off to eco, a little bit of trail. It just cruised all the way along the trails, and they were wet and varied and rocky and all sorts. Just cruised away. It did feel a little bit like cheating because ordinarily you get to the bottom of a valley and you see up the other side, you get over a ridge and you think, oh, it goes all the way up there. Oh, that's quite a long way. I just need to steel myself, drop it down a gear or whatever. With this, I might have dropped it down a gear to be fair, but yeah, it's fine. It's great. It's going to get me up there, and it did. So it did feel a little bit like cheating. However, it royally minged, big style. Like it hurt. It was really horrible. So I was so pleased to be able to hoon it out of there on the way back again. Just brilliant. And yeah, plenty of grip. I could also, which was really nice, because I was returning on the same route as I went out on, I could see I hadn't, you couldn't tell I'd been there. It was fantastic. So yeah, environmentally, it was controllable on the steeper ups, and on the trails, no different from any other bike. Absolutely brilliant. And with a little bit of extra speed and the ability to keep going, which was fantastic, and I was so pleased with it. By the time I got down to the valley, there were rivers running down the roads, all of them. It was properly minging. So it was a bit of a godsend, really. Oh, and of course, the battery didn't have a problem at all with the wet. There was a river crossing in there. Did have to carry it through some big rocks to get across the river. But yeah, the river crossing didn't cause it any problem. The amount of ming on the trail didn't cause it any problems at all. And then so much spray on the road on the last bit that didn't need washing. It was wet, and the bike stood up to that completely. It was, yeah, they're really pleased with it. So we'll see what we can do with it next. Tomorrow will be wet. So you may be worth asking yourself, where's the no video for the afternoon? Basically because it was so blooming minging that the GoPro would have been totally stuffed up with all the water all over it. Even with the Crunch Catcher XL, which stops the mud going everywhere. So some brief things that I learned, just briefly. Now, there's a lot more detail in the article I've written on the website. So it's www.realworldriding.co.uk. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, even I couldn't get it out. Anyway, it's there. There's more stuff there if you want it, and a little bit more detail on the bike too. But so what did I learn? Well, just as I pretty much would come into the conclusion of the first couple of days, was just using the battery as an extra gear. That was the way forward, not so kind of bunging it in turbo and leaving it there because it wouldn't last very long. Still trying to, if I was on easy stuff, easy terrain, pump the pressures up in my tyres, reduce the rolling resistance, pick nice solid bits of the trail rather than the soft and squelchy bits. So just ordinary efficient riding. That worked really well. Reasonably high spin rate, so we're talking a cadence around about 80 revolutions a minute, being pretty well. So it's spinning quite fast, but really notice that you really heard the motor kicking in there, and I got the most support from that, and nearly squealed a few times, woo, as we went off. So that really worked. Other things, when you're resting, stood over the bike, let the pedals go all the way to the bottom before you put your foot on it. Don't just kind of rest your foot on it, because if you turn the pedals, it will kick you in the backside as it tries to leap forward because of the power. Did learn that a couple of times. Maybe I didn't learn that because I did it a few times. So yeah, that was quite funny. The battery, if you're really careful about the battery and try to underuse it, so keep using the lower power settings, then you've got a remarkable distance out of it on reasonable amount of height. And we're talking, sort of, I was having 50-60% battery left after 30-40k and 600 meters of climbing, just by keeping working fairly hard. So keeping working fairly hard and not just taking it really easy. Other stuff that I did, it was really good in the cold. It was really good to be able to put plenty of clothes on and set my work rate and use the motor for that when I knew that that I was going to have plenty of battery for shorter rides. That was really nice. So I could dress properly for the weather and not worry about sweating out. So that was really handy. That was a bit of a win, that for the e-bike versus an ordinary bike. Yeah, I was amazed at how well it dealt with water. I think I've said that several times. It was slightly traumatic levels of water. So that was really good. And the bike that I had is a carbon fibre bike, I'll admit it. And although I've referred to it as a chunk, it was possible to lift it over gates, and I did have to lift it over a few on occasion. So it wasn't that bad. Jumping, did a little bit of jumping on the trails. You've got to, really, haven't you? Did a little bit of jumping. And all I found is that you didn't get the height, and that was probably just a suspension settings. But it is heavier than an ordinary bike. It's built solidly to deal with the extra weight on the frame. So I would expect it to be a little bit harder to get off the ground. But if you're not getting into it, getting off the ground particularly, then you had no problems with that whatsoever. Handling wise, I've talked about it before. I didn't use it on particularly technical terrain, but the technical-ish stuff, you just need to bear in mind that there is more weight coming down the trail, and steer and brake accordingly. And did get through brake shoes because it's heavier and it takes more stopping. Plus the tracks that I was on were very gravelly and very gritty. But yeah, there's a bit more weight there. And those are the major things. Blimey. The burn. Another burn. Under the trees. On his back. Another one. Another burn. Yeah. So I'm back for a conclusion. Hey. Well, so I'm home. Yeah, obviously. I made it home. Yeah. Really wet week that I had. Some big rides. Not technical, as I said before. It wasn't going to be technical, but just trying out and seeing what it was like riding an e-bike, and I had a bit of a blast actually. It was really relaxing, and for what I wanted it, which was to go out and explore, it was fantastic because I could just head off down a track, see what it was like, and if it didn't go where I wanted it to, just ride back up again without worrying about it too much. A little bit concerned, just making sure that I didn't overuse the battery. And one of the things I did find is when it got really cold, it was I was sleeting and snowing at one stage, so it got pretty cold. It's around about 1-2 degrees. Then the battery life did suck out quite quickly. So yes, you need to watch out for that in really cold weather. But it was remarkably good at dealing with the wet. The wet didn't cause it any problems at all. And sorry, Martin. The motor was definitely underwater at stages in some of those puddles because they were massive. So all in all, a good week. Hopefully it's found it useful, as I said. And if you got any questions, then fire them off and I'll answer them honestly. So thanks very much for watching to the end, and see you another time. Bye-bye. Oh, bye, Archie. Yeah, still pretty shy.